Hey guys, it's King. Welcome to another Autism Digest interview. As I've said time and time again, at Autism Digest, we're all about offering different perspectives of autism, whether that be the diagnosed, the parent, the instructor, or the ally. Today we have another ally. He's a rapper who you might know from the hit song, This Is Why I'm Hot. He's an entrepreneur, well known for an application that actually won TechCrunch's 2017 competition. He is MIMs. Thanks for coming on, MIMs.
Caden, how's it going? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the intro, and I also appreciate you allowing me to be on your platform.
It's going well, Rep. That you're here. I think a lot of people might remember you from the early 2000s. This Is Why I'm Hot was all over the radio stations back then. But for those that may not know you, do you mind summarizing a bit of your story in your own words?
Yeah, well, my name is Sean Mims. For those who don't know me, I also professionally go by the artist name Mims. I'm a multi-platinum musician who got his big break for putting out a record called This Is Why I'm Hot, which reached top #1 Billboard charts in 2007. So it's been quite a while. I'm Caden. I'm not sure how old you are, but something tells me 2007 you were probably just being born, or maybe even not born yet. Am I mistaken, or are you older than that?
I'm 21 years old. I was born in 2004. The song came out in 2007, I believe. So
yep,
I was about 3 years old, I believe.
3 years old. So it's cool to see you have a platform called Autism Digest. So it's cool to see me being interviewed on your platform, knowing that my music may have resonated with you, not necessarily when it came out, because I'm not sure if you were 3 years old, if your parents played it for you, but to see where it is now and to see that someone like yourself would be interviewing someone like myself, I think it's an amazing thing, and I'm super appreciative to be on your platform, sir.
Thank you, sir. It's one of my favorite things about what I do, because you never know who's going to have some sort of association with the autism community, which leads me to my next question. Have you had any experiences interacting with the autism community in some way that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think for me, because I meet a lot of individuals in life, and because I'm an entertainer in some capacity, you meet all people from all walks of life, and I've met a lot of people on the spectrum, more or less, and everybody kind of has their own thing. And I think that just as a humans in general, we all kind of have our own way of thinking and doing things. And one of the things that I know is that when I meet people, I was always told, no matter what in life, you treat the CEO, you treat the janitor with the same respect you treat the CEO. And I've been treated with that respect in my life. So when I come across individuals from all walks of life, I find it fascinating to learn about their story, who they are, and what they represent. So yeah, I've met several people in the autism community, and every interaction that I've had thus far has been a pleasant one.
I'm glad, and I absolutely love that statement, treating the CEO of gender same. A bit of a story for you. I've started doing communications work as a teenager, writing for a company called Sports Column, Joe Fraser's son, and he said the exact same thing, because it's true, and that's an even truer statement now more than ever, because that's what we need, to treat everyone as equals. My next question for you is, what initiatives has the hip-hop industry taken for inclusion of neurodivergent individuals that you admire? And how can hip-hop be more inclusive to neurodivergent individuals in the future?
I think that hip-hop represents, in general, it represents a community of people who feel like they're underrepresented, or minority, more or less. And I think that when you come from a position of understanding what it is to feel like a minority, or like the world doesn't necessarily recognize or represent you properly, I think that you can carry that same compassion from your life to the compassion of to have compassion for others. So one of the things I enjoy about hip hop is being a voice for the voiceless, right? So I think when it comes to people who are part of your community per se, it's important for you to do things like this that you're doing, right? Because it's important for people to visualize and see the capabilities of people who may not necessarily think the same as they do, but it doesn't mean that you are less than or not equal to. Going back to the statement we just kind of referred to. And I think that's what hip hop represents. I think hip hop represents a community of people who tend to be the voice for the voiceless. Not every record you hear is going to be about, positive change and reinforcement. But for the most part, where the actual soul of hip hop music comes from is just being a voice for the voiceless.
I absolutely agree. I got into hip hop as a teenager, specifically the newer stuff. Then, when I was in high school, I researched hip hop more thoroughly, and I absolutely agree. It's a voice for voiceless. Said, not all songs, that's just the way the real world works, but giving people a voice is absolutely important, especially through music. Which leads to my next question. You're an entrepreneur. You won a competition with your project in 2017, and autistic individuals tend to have a hard time getting a job. How can businesses be more inclusive in their hiring processes to make it easier for neurodivergent individuals to thrive in their place of employment?
Well, that's a really great question. And I think, once again, I go back to my statement that every individual is different. And I think that the world tends to group individuals within the same, they take one individual and they group them into the same section as they would another individual. What I tend to, I guess, enjoy even about the conversation we have now is that your questions are very unique. And they come from, I would assume that you do your research. And I think that the world needs to be open to the perspective from different individuals. Because when it comes to the world of business, the number one goal in business is usually because you're selling something, right? So either you're selling a product or you're selling a service. And I think when you talk about some of the underrepresented communities, and I'll use the Black community as an example because that's the community that I've been a part of. You cannot, when you create products, you have to create products with certain individuals in mind, as a business. And I think that when you start to learn how individuals think and operate, no matter what that, depending on what that business is, when you start to learn how the individuals operate, then you can create a product specifically catered to certain people. And that would mean that you need to be in the know in that community. So someone would, in order for someone to create products for the autistic community, they would have to have a voice or someone speaking for that community to understand what the community needs. And I think that because of that, it should allow placement for individuals like yourself to be a voice in certain companies. Not every company is going to fit that profile. For example, there were a lot of companies that were created back in time that weren't necessarily created to market to Black individuals. But over the years, as the Black individuals became primary consumers of these companies, they had to kind of turn their attention to that community. And I think that, the autistic community will soon be able to use that same method to have their community represented. So I'm hoping that I didn't speak too much on it. I'm hoping that you kind of understand where I was going with it. But I think you being included your brain and how you think should be included in every aspect of how people would market a product to yourself.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with that. That's exactly what we need, not just within the neurodivergent or autistic communities, but within all communities. Companies need to understand what exactly we need, especially some bigger Fortune 500 companies. That's why another thing we do at Autism Digest is work to spotlight those products through our unboxings. So I definitely agree we should be spotlighting exactly what the community needs when a product or business is being made. Which leads to my next question. What's your advice to anyone, neurodivergent or not, that wants to make it in the music industry or start their own business?
My advice is first follow your heart, right? That's number one. Music is subjective, which means that when you create music, really you're creating it from a subjective point of view. You should never create music to emulate what someone else is doing. It should definitely come from your heart and your soul, right? That's where the origins of it should come from. As far as business is concerned, I think it really just depends on what exactly it is you're trying to sell or be a part of or create. I think that in the world we live in today, tech to me seems to be one of those businesses that continuously reinvents itself. So what I like to say is that in the tech space, you have to be disruptive. That means you have to create a product that a person never knew they needed. But however, when they get it, it probably creates some sort of a difference in their life that they didn't really understand that they needed to begin with. So, for example, you look at people like Mark Zuckerberg, who created these new Meta Ray-Ban glasses. And what I happen to think about a product like that is that we might be on the brink of the first iteration of something that will take us away from cell phones, right? Because right now, as we go through everyday life, everybody kind of has this in their hands. So what happens when you take what's in your hand and you make it wearable and give it functionality? And those are the things that I think creative people can be a part of. And I guess I would ask you a question. What is something in your community that you feel is a necessity that doesn't exist yet?
That's a tough one. There's a lot of things that are necessities that exist. I would say, in the sense of the autism community specifically, what I'm hoping for is a therapy that has actual autistic individuals at the helm. That way, there can be a sense of understanding between people's situations, or ideally, not that many loopholes to get services for autistic individuals that might be having a hard time. Specifically, to explain it further, once you're diagnosed, say at 2 years old, like I was, or later in life, you should never be questioned about that again. There should be a database that automatically qualifies you for whatever services are out there for autistic individuals, whether that be support groups, therapies, life skills classes, that kind of thing, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. And I think that as you voice that as a vision, I think the next thing to do is to actually continuously voice that in the proper rooms. And I think when you get in the room with people who may not necessarily understand that autism in general, but they may have the financial capacity to create these type of programs, or at least show you where to go to achieve it. That should be the goal, to get something like that off the ground. Because I think, once again, I can't speak in your shoes, right? I can't represent where your brain capacity is and what the thoughts are that go on in your head, nor can you do what I. So the world needs to hear this, because in order for them to understand that these are services that are necessary, they actually have to hear it from people who need the service. And I think that you being an intelligent young man, and representing a specific community, who better than to sit at the helm of that process? So I think that that's something you should put some action into.
I absolutely agree. How look into how to do that. My last question for you is: what does the future hold for you? Do you have any new songs or businesses that you're working on that you want to plug?
Yeah, my future is pretty. I would say I don't like to think too far ahead, because I think nothing is ever promised. But I think one thing that I know is that I'm living in the moment. I'm enjoying the moment. I'm almost 20 years removed from the creation of This Is Why I'm Hot, and the actual Billboard charting of the record. And I think as I reflect on the last 19 years of my life, I realize that I've been blessed to be places and do things that most people haven't gotten the opportunity to. And with that being said, I think my goal now is just to enjoy the moment.
I definitely respect that. That's the way we should all live our lives. Anyways, that's a perfect way to wrap up this interview. Thank you so much, Dementz, for coming on and sharing your story. If you guys want to see more amazing interviews, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Autism Digest channel. Check out our November issue when it comes out by going to autismdigest.com, and stay tuned for the audio file of this interview to be posted on our Spotify.
And
thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.